Thanks a lot for being here. I was in this room yesterday for Techstars Demo Day. How many people were here for that? Wow, awesome, right? I mean, let's give the Techstars guys a hand. Andy and Chris DeVore and the guys behind Techstars, I mean, I think it's an amazing part of the overall ecosystem that we have here. And for all the guys at GeekWire too, doing amazing things to make our community better. And I think all of us, including myself, have a small responsibility to try and make our own startup successful, but probably more importantly is to make the community and environment that we have to create these companies more successful, more useful. So I hope that today a few of my anecdotes can be helpful to you individually and then to the community at large. I think the single biggest skill that's required to create a company is the ability to make hard decisions. We all make small, hard decisions every day or every month or every quarter or every year, but there's 4 big decisions that happen in any startup, and I'm going to try and give anecdotes of each of those. Number 1, when to start it, when to fund it, when to kill it, and when to sell it. And after the acquisition of GIST by BlackBerry, at least now I know how to do each one of those things. So I'm going to give you some anecdotes about all that. So first, when to start it. The first thing I want you to remember is to keep your day job as long as possible. It takes a tremendous amount of time to put the foundation in place that's required to build a startup. And the 2 key pieces, I think, of that tend to be customer development and team development. And it takes a long time to do both of those. So I encourage you to start that process now while you still have your day job. If you've already quit, you probably did too early. But if you still have your day job, start thinking about your next startup and building the skills that's required to go do that. A tactical way to do that is to start finding people you want to work with and meet with them on a frequent basis. Could be Tuesdays, could be Wednesdays, could be working out, could be Saturdays. But start doing that on a regular basis, because if you're the kind of person that wants to do a startup, you can probably do your day job in 75% of the time and start allocating time toward building relationships with another set of people. Startups also take a long time to get funded. And we all have house payments, we need to pay for beer and pizza. So keep your day job as long as you can. At some point in time, that concept for your startup will overwhelm you so much that all you want to do is work on it. And you can slowly increase that time, whether it be late at night or in the afternoons or before work, because I can tell you when you quit your day job and go start that startup, you will be working in the morning and the night and on Saturday and on Sunday. So you may as well build it into your life before you quit your day job. Number 2 is you got to date your co-founders for a long time. Just like getting married, it takes a while to find the right person or the right people. These are my co-founders at Rival IQ. John's in the room today. John and I met over almost 2 years ago, and we met as mentors for Techstars. And it said, hey, it'd be kind of fun to work on something together. And so we started meeting for coffee, and we would meet for coffee on a regular basis, and we would just kick back and forth ideas, both talking personally as well as professionally. And started to say, this is pretty fun, like we're enjoying it. We got to a couple of ideas which were narrower, and we said, John said, let me bring in a couple of friends of mine that I've worked with in the past, Seth and Seth on the bottom, who are both devs. And together, we effectively would we had this sort of regular meeting time where we would develop ideas, develop a relationship with each other, develop skills, and all of us together sort of built the idea which is the foundation of the next company. We didn't agree on everything. We disagreed on certain things. We understood each other's intricacies and the things we didn't do very well, and the fact that I send things with lots of misspellings in it and forget to add the attachment, or send the same email to the same person 3 times in a row. Like, that's a problem. It's a problem for me, but also the team can start to say, okay, that's just he's good at these things, not so good at those things. So how do we fill in for that? So just like in a marriage, you need to date your co-founders for a while. You need to fight a few times and you need to be able to make up. Next, it takes a long time for you to decide on what market you're going to go after. Most startups that I talk to, and I'm very active at the Startup Weekend level and Techstars level, is they focus so much on the idea and the idea and the idea and the product without developing the customers at the same time. You may find that your idea is going to sell to people that you don't really want to spend that much time with. or an industry that you're not that interested in. And I encourage you to find places where you are really interested in the customer that you're trying to solve a problem for, and that you want to spend a lot of time with them. You want to go to their conferences and you want to hang out with them, and all you want to talk about is all the problems that surround their particular industry. And if you don't, you will likely get bored of that very quickly and not probably build a successful company. So spend time on customer development. If I'm talking to you as a founder and I say, tell me about 5 people or 10 people or 20 people or 50 or 100 people you've talked to who actually have this problem by name, not the fictitious persona on the wall, real people that you know who can say, if you could build that, I would pay for it. Or if you could build that, I will use that and I'll tell 5 other friends about it. It takes a long time to do customer development. But as you do that, sometimes the customer development part of it illustrates a problem that you didn't realize was there, and it ultimately affects the solution that you go and build. This also takes a long time, so keep your day job. And this last process actually resulted in Rival IQ, which is the new company that we're working on. And as Craig said, we basically do online competitive intelligence for marketers who want to understand where they rank and win by learning from their competitors. We started that after screwing around with it for 2 years of a concept, a year's worth of prototyping, 6 months worth of actual product and customer development, and we started it on day 0 with our first paying customer. So we chose to not really even start the company until we had enough momentum on both the customer side and the team side to say, can we build it? Will anyone use it? And if so, will they pay us for it? So it's an example of all 3 of those things. That's the starting part. This is my favorite part. The early days when it's super messy, when the code is being developed so quickly because you don't have all the baggage of customers and underlying sort of systems. It's super fun, and I'm really proud about what we've done so far. Next, funding it. At some point in time, most of us will try to build a venture-backed business because those tend to be the biggest ones and they grow the fastest. You will make a choice that you want to go and raise money. Generally speaking, an angel round led by a Series A, B, C, D, whatever. That decision is a really big decision for you, both in terms of what the company is going to look like. As soon as you take real investors' money, their job and your job is to grow that thing as fast as you can at breakneck speed. Before you take their money, you can grow it at whatever pace you want. You can grow it in the way that you want. It's a tremendous amount of control, but as soon as you take their money, all things are going to change. So it's a very big decision about, am I going to do it, when am I going to do it, and how am I going to do it? So under the assumption that we're all going to go build really big, fast-growing companies, first thing you think about is find like-minded people. Everyone is motivated by different things. Some people want to change the world, some people want to make a lot of money, some people want to build something that's cool, some people want to build a big company, some people want to work in a particular industry. Find like-minded investors who have similar views on the world and similar views on the problem space and similar views on you individually as founders. Just like getting married, you want to date for a little while. So you want to start building relationships with people who are smart, who you respect, where you can ask them questions and they can give you things that are inspirational and smart back. A lot of times you run away from people who ask you the hardest questions and go to the people who are easiest on you. Go focus on the people who ask you the hardest questions. Not dumb questions, good, smart questions. You're like, wow, I hadn't thought about that before. That is an excellent point. And do that before you need to raise money. Easiest way to do it is go find some company, someone who's invested in a company just like yours that's already been successful. You invested in Aperture, you made a bunch of money on that. We're kind of like them, but different, and I'd love your opinion on this very focused thing. That's an easy way to have a coffee date. That's an easy way to have an email exchange. It's an easy way to start building relationships. So find like-minded people that could potentially invest in what you're doing. This is Brad Feld, invested in my last company. I can tell you every person in this room would be fortunate to work with him. It was an amazing experience. I have tremendous respect for him, and he was a lot of the success of GIST. You need to create momentum. When you're going to go and raise money, you have to predict about when you're going to be able to raise money and start to create the perception or the real momentum. That tends to be customers and product and investors and team all at the same time, which is what you're going to have to do when you grow your business anyway. But creating momentum and therefore planning for that momentum is critically important. People want to invest, that's on the people side and the investor side, when they feel momentum, when they feel the thing's about to take off. So you have to be able to plan for, when am I going to hit that little ramp on number of customers? Or the product is going to have this really cool feature that everyone says, oh, I see where you're going now. And that's really important for you. And you sometimes know you've hit it when you get these kinds of comments coming back from customers. And you have to try to predict for it, but you never know when it's actually going to be there. You just have to do the work. But you have to perceive what is going to be momentum and how am I going to communicate that momentum as best I possibly can. Okay. There will be lots of points in the future where it doesn't go very well for you, and you will have to choose to keep going or to quit. So my second startup was a company called HelpShare. This I went back to the Wayback Machine and took a screen cap of it from 1999, which is a totally awesome product, by the way. It actually had an animated GIF there, the fastest way, the easiest way, the best way, and I just happened to catch that one at the screen cap, so I'm a little embarrassed to show that. But anyway, it was a simple thing, kind of like Quora, 1999. We raised $500,000, mostly from friends and family, no real experienced investors. We built the first version of the product. We had 5 paying customers. We went to go raise money in February of 2000. Pretty bad timing. Couldn't raise money. Nobody could really raise money. Had, I think, around 11 or 12 people at the time. And we continued to run that company on, fumes for about another 4, 5, 6 months, at which point I remember it like it was yesterday, sitting around the conference table with the team and saying, I can't afford to pay you anymore. I'd love for you to keep working on it, but I can't afford to pay you anymore. I think the dream is sort of over. That was really, really hard. But I had to make that decision to kill the company at that point in time. So most everybody went home. Most everybody went and got another job because I really hadn't paid them very much in the first place. But as they did that, I worked on it for about another 6 months unpaid. And at some point in time, people started to say, like, you need to figure out what you're going to do with this thing. And you as an entrepreneur, whether you're on the positive side or on the downside, need to set realistic milestones. If I can't achieve X by Y, I'm not going to do the next thing. It's a very important part of decision making, and I encourage you to tell that to somebody who's not just on your team. Tell that to an advisor, someone you trust. Tell that to me if you need to. Tell that to your spouse, your partner, your parents, doesn't matter, but tell it to somebody so that they can keep you honest. Because at some point you're going to hit that, and we as entrepreneurs will somehow convince ourselves that it's actually going to turn around when it's not likely to happen. So at one point, this is my wife on the left or right, this one. At one point in time, she said, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. Like, imagine how hard that is for someone. Like, I'd spent 3.5 years on HelpShare. I had poured all of our life savings into it. I had poured all of my friends' savings into it. And she had to come to me and say, it's not going to work. You need to go get a job. And so, in some way, she supported me through the up, the down, the up again, the down again. And in many ways, we build a culture of the startup into our overall family, into all of our friends. And those people want you to be successful, but they also need to keep you honest. And I thank her for helping me do that. It's great to have her with me, as Jonathan said. Okay, so it happens, right? Companies die. Most of yours will die. 2 of mine have died. And it's what you do with that that will define you in the future. You're likely to fail on lots of ideas. You're likely to fail on feature ideas in your product. You're likely to fail. It's what you do with the failure that matters. And so I took my time. I went to Microsoft. I worked there for a couple, 3 years. I regained my confidence. I recharged my bank account. I rebuilt my relationship because I hadn't seen her for a long time while I was working 20 hours a day, and got the momentum back to go and start again. It's what you do with all that failure, whether it's every day, whether it's a firing, whether it's not closing the financing, that will define you in the future. So, momentum, you start building it again, and I started GIST in 2007. Started working on GIST in 2007. I screwed around with the idea for GIST for a good 4, 5, 6 months as an entrepreneur in residence at Vulcan. We played around with lots of different things, 3 or 4 people. We dated for a little while. We started the company, raised a Series A from Brad Feld, and then had built a pretty successful company in a pretty big space. And along came, we're getting ready to raise our Series B. So I started to make the plan for what does the future look like. I went and started to talk to the people I wanted to partner with, one being Salesforce. Salesforce came and said, wow, it seems like you guys had a pretty big vision. What if we just buy the company? Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, but good to know. In fact, we put an LOI in place. We started to do all the due diligence. The day before I was going to meet with Mark Benioff to sign off on the deal, they called it off. Shit. Really? That was a big decision. What do we do now? Like, we had sort of put a lot of eggs in that basket. But luckily we were sort of well prepared, made a decision like, okay, dust ourselves off and think about what's happening next. And by lo and behold, along came BlackBerry, basically asking the same kinds of questions. And one thing led to another, and we ultimately put that deal together. But as an entrepreneur, what I encourage you to do at each funding milestone, when you start the company, when you fund it, that you create effectively in your mind, what is your exit criteria? Is it $10 million? Is it 20? Is it 50? Is it 100? And if this company offers to buy us, would we do it or wouldn't we? It's not a huge exercise, but I encourage you to do it because it helps you to have clarity. And when someone does come and say they want to buy your company, you say, listen, it's got to be this number, and that's a crazy number, right? They're going to be like, are you insane? Like, your company you think is worth $20 million? And you're like, I know, it's insane, right? But I can't sell the company because I have a responsibility for my investors, and we're just getting going. We're just starting. The future is so bright for us, and if you were to buy my company today, I'd be losing all that upside. So I realize it's a crazy number, but unless it's that number, which will be 3 times bigger than you think it should be, we can't even have the discussion, so let's go back to talking about whatever we were talking about before. Create your exit criteria. In our case, it was a certain price point. It was we're staying in Seattle and we get to keep working on contacts and my team stays together at the high level. And that's all you need to do. Create that exit criteria. Going up the coast of Brazil, basically all we have to do is kind of go around the track. Mask falls down. The race is a cumulative time race. The race was effectively over for us at that moment. Like, we had it sewn up. It was in the bag. Mask fell over. It took us about 3 days to go from where the point where the mask fell over to basically taking a left-hand turn and going into Brazil to try and fix the boat. And in that 3 days period of time, I can tell you when it fell down, once we secured the boat and made sure it wasn't going to sink, everyone on the team was like, as soon as I get to land, I am heading to the airport, I'm done. And over those 3 days, the skipper of the boat, Chris Dixon, was able to start to think, how do we reframe success here? How do we think about the responsibilities we have to ourselves, to the people who paid for all of this, to our families, to go and succeed? And hey, we could still win the last leg. Hey, we could still come 5th overall, which would be the bottom of the top stack. And you could fulfill this dream that you all might have had about sailing around the world. So that transition happened. We hit the coast of Brazil, fixed the boat, finished up into Fort Lauderdale, and then sailed from Fort Lauderdale into the finish in England. This is the last day. This is the last 3 hours of 131 sailing days going around the world, at which point we did, in fact, win the last leg. And it was an amazing experience. Both this day of sailing was the best day of sailing I ever had, but also finishing that sort of journey in a way that wasn't ultimately exactly what I thought success was going to look like, but certainly incredibly rewarding. So with that, I encourage you to make hard decisions, be bold, surround yourself with people who care, love you, and will support you to make those difficult decisions, and hopefully you'll be successful. Thank you very much.
Thanks, TA.